Hey everyone, welcome back to Watch and Carry. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a review of the Burris TX-33 tire on an off-road ride. So I've had this tire installed for a few weeks now, put in almost a couple hundred miles, and in a previous video, I gave you my impressions of how it performed on the street and on my daily commute, but today was the first time I got to take it on its proper on a proper ride off-road with ground that kind of looked like this to your right. So, you know, parts of it were pretty well packed with loose stones all over. So I went after work today. There's this area right behind where I live where they're building a bunch of homes. I'm from Las Vegas, and Las Vegas is in a state right now where they're developing a lot of homes, and so you can see there's a new housing complex here in the center of the screen, and then right below that here you'll see all these dirt paths that have kind of been bulldozed and paved, not paved over, but bulldozed and flattened over to allow construction vehicles to go in and out of these sites where they're building the newer homes. And so these paths right here are pretty open. There's nothing that keeps out the public. It's just the housing sites that they kind of fence off. But I've been riding these trails since the workers have been not in this area for the past couple days. So today I rode a trail that started all the way from here where you see my cursor, kind of went down here, did about 2.5 miles, picked up the trail all the way up here, and then double backed out to here. So during my ride, I actually filmed a lot of it, but the videos turned out to be a little bit too long, so I thought I would just play you some snippets of it. A warning ahead, if your volume on your computer or your headphones is turned up right now, make sure you turn them down a little bit because the video is going to be playing out of my phone speakers, and so it's really kind of scratchy and loud and you know, won't be comfortable to hear. So let's go ahead and get started with that video. So just some specs so you know, I'm about 190 pounds, 6'2", riding Onewheel Plus with a 2X battery system. Have this set to Delirium right now. A couple of cush highs that you can see front and rear, and then for the tire I'm running a PSI of 18. So this is my first time riding. I don't have a lot of experience, so expect some slips, but hopefully no falls. And yeah, we'll just see how the tire does. Okay, one thing I wanted to point out here, actually right between the tire and the rear foot pad, you see there's a little sliver here if you follow my cursor. So a lot of times what I notice is when I ride over dirt or sand, a lot of that material gets kicked up and sandwiched in between the cush high and my battery box on the bottom, and so it makes it, you know, kind of a pain to clean. I'm not too worried about it getting in the battery box because that's sealed up and weatherproofed pretty well, but still just kind of annoying because you know that all that sandy material is kind of rubbing against your foot pad and your battery case and scratching it up. So what I did was I actually cut a very thin piece of felt and kind of put it right there to kind of block that gap, again, between the cush high and the battery box. That felt is actually made out of this material here. So you can order this off Amazon. They usually cut these and put these underneath furniture to help it move across hard surfaces, but that's the name of it. Comes in an adhesive on the back. And then the way I cut it was like this. So here you can kind of see where my cursor is. A very small thin strip, probably no wider than like 2 millimeters. And then I cut a long thin strip and I ran it, follow my cursor all the way here, basically blocking that gap again between the battery box case on the bottom and the cush high on the top. So just one recommendation I would do. So let's get back to the video. Oh, and then another thing with the video, I don't mention it in there, but pay attention to my knees. I was quite surprised with how soft the tire was. I mean that as a good thing. It really absorbed the bumps really, really well. And so you'll notice very minimal bouncing with my knees, despite the fact that the road is really bumpy.
Now, pretty big sized pebbles. The dirt's a little bit looser here. Okay. Now I think we're actually on a trail right now, so this will be nice. Ooh, couple big rocks there. Ooh. Oh, God, this thing's a beast.
So like right here, you can look at my knees, not too much bouncing.
I gotta say, for the bumpiness of this road, it's definitely not as bad as I would have thought. I was expecting my legs to really just be shaking up and down like crazy, but man, this tire is really absorbing the vibrations and the rocks really well. I mean, obviously bumpy, but really not that bad. It's a nice, soft, or medium-grade compound.
Okay, and then there was a section here, I think, where I was going uphill.
And doing some turns, I'm pretty surprised how grippy this is, because this is a rounder profile than the Vega. Obviously treaded, it's more benefit, but it's rounder. Almost like a pint tire, but not that round.
So you can see it does pretty well going uphill. And then I'll go to my second video. The second video is actually me going downhill now. So that entire ride you just saw was actually going up about maybe, 5 degree, 10 degree grade. So pretty good grade going up. And so now riding the reverse going down.
And I didn't realize how big a grade I was going up. So I think going down this dirt trail will be a much different experience than going up. So I figured that'll be another good test to share with you guys in terms of how the tire performs. It's actually a little bit easier for me to enjoy and push this tire to its limit with the downhill now. All right, so let's do it. Like a landmine. Okay, here we go. Let this guy open up. Some carving in.
So I want to mention right here, I'm actually carving pretty hard. So I would say my carves are about 1 to 1.5 feet to the left and to the right. Really pushing it a lot harder than I thought I would, because I thought at this point I would be slipping. But again, tire was just doing great in a straight line, doing great, in turns. Everything was great.
Wow. All right, got a pretty good downhill going here. See how this tire grips. Actually going pretty fast on that. I'm going about 10 miles an hour.
Okay, and one thing I also want you to notice is right over here between the tire and the rear foot pad. Notice that there's not a whole lot of dust or dirt or stones kicking up. So again, I think that's just that felt that I put in there. Not only does it keep the dirt from going underneath the pad, but I think it kind of seals off the tire a little bit in the rear and prevents that stuff from getting on top of the pad where my foot is too.
So that was very impressive. All right, let's open this guy up.
And now that I'm kind of on flat or downhill but flatter ground, I'm pushing this pretty fast. I'm going about maybe 17, 18 miles per hour.
Hopefully you can see me carving in the video. Whoa, little jump there. It's kind of fun actually having to play around and avoid the big rocks while you're going down. It's like going through cones. Whew. Oh man, this is a lot of fun. Wow. This is great. Whoa! Almost ate it there. Wow. You know, I'm really trying to be a little cocky here, and I'm trying to push my carves a little bit more aggressively. And man, I mean, there's just a little bit of slip at the apex, but this tire is gripping well, even with, look, he's trying to carve the hell out of this thing, and this thing just grips. Man, it's fantastic. A little bit looser here with the ground, and it's still doing well. Wow.
Yep, so that kind of covers the riding, and then I actually did an after ride review talking about my experience, so let me fast forward to that part.
So anyways, I'm going to give you my quick review on this last ride that I did. Again, this is basically 90% of what I was riding over. See, it's pretty chunky. So I would say overall the tire does really well. Quite surprised with the performance of this. So on flat ground or flat dirt like this, it grips really well. You obviously don't feel as stable as you will on pavement, but I would say it's about, 60 to 75% of the way there, or similar to the grippiness you'll feel on pavement when riding flat. When it's flat and you're carving left and right, I would say obviously the intensity of your carving needs to be dialed down, especially as you're going into that apex. That's really when your grip is going to be sacrificed and you could slip. But if you kind of keep your carving down like 50%, you can still turn on this tire really, really well. I'm quite impressed with that. When it gets to really loose ground, so I would say more like this over here. I was riding on that for about 10% of my ride. I'll say that the grippiness kind of dials down riding flat to about 50%, maybe even 25%. So not that I'm slipping around, but I'm definitely more conscious of going slower. Turning, obviously, at that speed is a little bit more difficult as well. But again, nothing like the stock Vega. I mean, it's not even fair to compare it because it's a treaded tire. But even with this rounded profile, I feel so much more planted with this. One thing that I'm really happy about is just the comfort. So, I've tried riding the same trail with my Vega. I was slipping left and right. I mean, I'm not the best rider, first of all, so I'm sure better skill could do better. But, I mean, I would say at least every 20 yards, I was almost slipping off the board. A lot of times I would notice that when I'd get to an incline like this, or maybe a really loose ground like, like what's over there, I would have wheel slip. And then, of course, that would bring its own problems. So.
And not only that, but with the stock Vega too, it's not only a matter of grip, but it's a stiffer tire, at least in my experience. And so, when I would ride this ride here, not only was I having a hard time keeping my balance, but I was also having a lot of bounce in my knees. My foot placement was constantly moving and shifting. So a much softer, more absorbent ride with the Burris.
I didn't have a single, no wheel slip today at all, even going on that incline. So it does really well. The other thing I noticed compared to the stock Vega was just how softer this tire is. And not only do you get the benefit of that grip, but the TX-33 compound, if you check out Burris's website, is actually I think it's soft to medium or medium to hard. I think it's soft to medium grade tire compound, which means, of course, that it's going to be a little bit of a softer ride. And boy, I tell you, I'm not going to say this feels like butter riding on this, but it feels surprisingly soft. There's obviously vibration in my legs, my whole lower body, but it's vibration that is dampened quite a bit compared to the stock Vegas. So really, really, I almost feel like I have a little bit of a suspension system on my board with this tire. So that's just a really great surprise.
And then one other thing I have to give a compliment to is these double cush highs that I'm running front and rear. You know, just the grip tape is much grippier. The profile is much more concave, so it really locked in my foot, you know, tremendously well. But as far as absorbing the bumps, a lot of that, most of that is going to be due to the tire.
Okay, how about going downhill? I didn't get a chance to do that here. I did that earlier before I started filming. I would say, obviously, take it a lot slower than you would a typical downhill that's paved. But again, the tire grabbed perfectly fine.
I said take it slower, but as I had already mentioned, I completely ignored that within the next 10 minutes of this video because I just felt really confident. And the fact that you're taking a beginner rider like me, and especially a beginner rider going off-road. I mean, this is really the first time I've ridden my Onewheel off-road. And the fact that I felt confident enough to go 18 miles per hour on an off-road type of terrain, that just speaks to how well the tire is and how much confidence and stability it instills in you and your ride.
Felt fine. Definitely wouldn't recommend carving going downhill too much. I would just stick to going straight, you know, but the wheel
you should carve.
Really,
I did
really
carve.
Well. So I think that kind of wraps it up. I've done about 2 miles now on this tire and on the off-road, and so far I really like it. You know, I would say if you're going to grab any Onewheel, like a Plus, Pint, XR, I would say if you're looking for an upgrade besides the foot pads, your next thing, if not your first thing, you really should be looking at is the tire. Going from a stock or a slick tire like the Vega to a Burris treaded really just opens up your versatility while riding. You know, I started this trail 4 miles back on paved streets, and I just saw this trail off to the side that I usually take, and I just got inspired. I said, hey, let's take this. I've never tried this tire off-road, and I had that flexibility to do that with this tire, whereas with my Vega, I probably could have, but it definitely wouldn't have been as easy or as enjoyable for me. So you just have a little bit more flexibility with your riding, less having to plan, more of just going out, being natural, yes, keeping an eye on your mileage, but just really enjoying and exploring different parts that maybe you have or haven't tried before. So would definitely recommend picking this tire up. All right, guys, so that'll do it for today's video. Leave you guys with the sunset there in the back. And as always, if you guys have any questions or comments, please put them down below.
All right, and so that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today's video. Again, Burris TX-33, you can get this off of the Burris website or off of Craft and Ride, which is where I got mine. And highly recommend it. A+ all around, just a really, really all-around great tire. Great on the pavement, great on the grass, and then today, absolutely excellent on dirt. And the fact that you can go between all three of those areas and feel completely confident and still maintain good speed and good mileage. I mean, I haven't really noticed a drop in mileage with this. It's just a great, great tire, so can't recommend it enough. All right, guys, that'll do it for today. If you have any comments or questions, or maybe some other great tires that you've used and recommend, please put them down below along with your comments about those tires. And as always, have fun, be safe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.